Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of the Vortex Cast. I am Nolan from XD, and joined with me today are six different guests. You guys have seen three of them before, I think, but nonetheless, let's introduce them. So on the top left, we have Roger from 1008M, six-time state champion, South Dakota, Northeast Wisconsin signature event champion, number one seed in 2019 VEX Pro Science Division. And then we got Tilden below him, middle left. He's the 2019 U.S. Open Division champion and 2020 Virtual Worlds Technology Division champion. Then below him, bottom left, Maxim from 169. He is the 2018 VEX Worlds Math Division champion and the only two-time signature event winner. Let's moving our way to the right side. We have Kays from Pylons 50 to 25A. And now in Queens, he's the 2018 VEX Worlds Robot Skills and Match Play champion. Then we have Gautier from 7K. He's the 2019 U.S. Open champion and the 2020 Virtual World Skills champion. Then finally, we have Mark from 185A, 2016 VEX Worlds World Finalist and 2017 VEX Worlds Technology Division champion, as well as the winner of the 2020 Google Signature event. So, how are you guys doing today? Thanks for joining me.
Not too bad. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Thank you. Pretty good as well. So we really appreciate all you guys tuning in. We got a great cast for you guys tonight. Gonna preview a little bit what we are going to be talking about. So first, we're gonna start off with Virtual Worlds, just going over it really quick. What we thought of it, opinions of it, and that. And then second, we're going to jump right into it. We have two separate robots to reveal for you guys. Okay, so we had two separate groups working tirelessly. They didn't get much work, they didn't get much sleep last night working on these robots. 24 hours to build them to try to reveal them on this stream. So we have a group from Minnesota, it's the 8110 guys, and also from Nebraska, it's the 3141 guys. So they both individually built robots, and we're going to reveal both of them for you in about 5 minutes here, and then they will be live on YouTube after. And then after that, we're going to do an overview of Change Up, just go over it, initial thoughts, everything like that. Then we're going to jump into game strategy. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then finally, we're going to talk about robot design and what we think is going to be dominant this year. All right, so let's start. And with Virtual Worlds, let's start with the simulation. I mean, that was the main part of it. I know it was only like 10 minutes, but, it was definitely the thing that everyone was talking about. So, what did you guys think of the simulation and how they took the scores from each team's highest scoring matches during the season and randomly assigned them to the quals? What was your guys' overall opinion on the simulation?
I don't really think it was really accurate in any sort of way. Like, there was teams that got knocked out, like quarterfinals or like division finals, like 7K, that would have obviously made it to like world finals or like the dome at least. So obviously it wasn't going to be accurate, and it wasn't for fun. I don't think it was necessarily a great thing for VEX to do, because more people are just going to get upset at the end of apparent reason than the people that are going to be super excited for winning.
Yeah, like Pylons out in the first round or whatever.
That
was
crazy.
Yeah, like there's no way, right? It was just kind of ludicrous.
Yeah,
The results, but like, yeah, not a single 169 team in elims, because I'll just say for me, right, if it averages your match scores, right, I played a strategy all season where I didn't do towering, so like it makes sense. But it's like it didn't go off elo, it made off average scores, which is like really weird. I don't know why they did an algorithm like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think the same thing. I mean, you like look at it, and they had this perfectly good system with VexiBot, and that basically generated number that's in all the Discord servers that is a combination of OPR, DPR, and all these statistics to get an accurate reading for each match. But instead, they just took your highest scores from the year, and like first glancing at it, it may sound okay, but it like really just helps teams that either were a tower bot and just complemented, and every time they were with a Trey bot, they just scored an insanely high score, or they were from a region, where towers were more important and teams were doing towers more than, regions where towers weren't really looked as like a useful object.
I mean,
Yeah,
circling back to the point here, I guess like it was a cool idea that they wanted to do like a virtual worlds type thing, especially for all the people that like put a lot of time into it. But I think it's kind of sad attaching like awards to it because at the end of the day, it's a simulation, and not only that, there's a lot of teams that put in a stupid amount of work before worlds to make things better, more consistent. And like a perfect example was us and in the zone. Our skill scores were like halfway in the table. Like I think we might have been top 10 actually, but no one really saw us in the top 5 until we got to Worlds. And I think a lot of teams have the ability to just turn something on between like their state or provincials and Worlds. And I think that that's what's left out, and that's why that like I think it's cool that they did it, but I don't think they should have assigned any sort of awards or anything like that to it.
yeah. One of my problems with it was that back like 10 years from now or 5 years from now, when someone looks back, you're gonna see like people as world champions or like division champions when they never really did anything to win that.
I feel
Yeah, I
like
agree.
the main flaw they had this year was the idea of taking the top scorers wasn't necessarily a bad idea, but like you said, in certain states or certain provinces, there's varying match. The one thing that doesn't change in every single province is the skills. I feel like what they should have done is they should have done, okay, if you're within the top 100 in skills, you get a bonus 5 points. If you're in the top 10, you get a bonus 10 points. If you're in the top 5, you get a bonus 50. That's where higher level teams have higher level scores. I feel like that should have been taken into account when they were doing the theoretical matches.
I like that idea. The problem I have with that idea is there's a lot of good teams that either don't do skills or are just garbage at like for example at the Wisconsin signature event,
Two
I ran
skills.
driver skills for and I got like a 12 because I tipped my stacks. And so for the longest time my skill score was just 12. So in a simulation like that I would be and then the 169 teams, did you guys even run skills before?
Nah, like I think I had a 30 skills.
Yeah, and these teams also like didn't have the knowledge of having to run skills. So I don't know. It's just it's hard,
I
no
just
matter
don't think
what
it
you
was a
do.
good decision in the end to
I don't
run
think in
it.
any case that like shipping out reds is like raw. Like
Yeah, if they give
If you're
someone a
gonna
red or they give someone, I think that's just
seriously,
other
like
teams that work super hard to get there but didn't get
like
lucky in
yeah,
the
like the teams that made it out like are good teams. Like you can't lie, but like if you didn't. I'm not saying they didn't work to get there because everybody worked together. You
Well, I
didn't
mean, you
actually
did
go through the
nothing to
process.
get there in the end.
Well, no, like every the teams like they were not saying the teams that didn't work hard, right? But like so did everybody else. Like you just get kind of extra recognition because you won some dice.
Yeah, you can't just throw numbers at it and be like, yeah, this is what would have
Yeah,
happened.
because that's
Like
obviously not
there's different.
like 100% obviously not. Like some of the results were just absolutely insane.
and that's
Yeah.
where if they're gonna do the controversial thing of throwing dice at it, they should do skills as well.
Yeah, I
they
mean,
should
why
be ready
why
for
not?
they should be ready for people to be mad at them for matches, like getting mad at them for skills, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, the skills is yes. There's a lot of teams that didn't get to run skills at Worlds, and that I totally agree. But I feel like it is more fair than giving out awards to random teams that got lucky. If
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, that's what it comes down to. Look at 5-2-2. One of the top teams in the world, in my opinion. Absolutely insane robot programming. They lose They lose first round. Like that is luck. That isn't skill.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really hard, obviously, to really do the simulation in any way that's fair to everybody. And that's why I think you really shouldn't really give out trophies or anything for it. I think they should have put a lot more emphasis on skills because that's something that most and now is more consistent.
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole idea behind it was just for fun, and I think we're just kind of harping on the bad points of it. So, but yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All right. Cool. So let's go into just overall change-up design or overall change-up, just like looking into the game, and then after that we will watch the reveals for the 2 robot in 1 days. So, going into the actual game, what do you guys think of the game elements being balls?
Yeah, Nolan, you're kind of cutting out a little bit here for us.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, am I good now?
Yeah, you seem fine.
Okay, cool. I was just thinking what you guys thought on the game elements this year being balls and towers.
It's cool.
Yeah, I guess it's
The game
fine.
The game objects are huge this year. It's I know that I'm going to be competing as VEX, but even as a high school team, an 18-inch robot is tiny when you have 6.5-inch balls. Like you put 3 of them, and it's the size of a robot. So to even have the capacity to hold more will be rather complicated. It's going to take quite a few deployments.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of people saying that it's like both too easy or it's too similar to previous games. Well, I think now, I mean, you can complain about it, but what's the point, right? Obviously, this game is different. It has a little bit. I mean, the bottom line is it's different, right? The game's going to play different. People are going to play the game differently. It's a different system. Stop complaining about it and make designs and make strategies. Start thinking about the game instead of just harping on it. So.
I totally agree. This game, unlike previous years, it won't be who's the fastest. It's gonna be who has the most strategy, because
who's the smartest driver?
You can drive super fast, but this game isn't just throw balls at flags. It's actually strategy.
I do think for skills, it is a little bit on the easier side this year.
Yeah,
I definitely think we'll see max out scores at work.
Yeah, unless they make some changes, I think.
Yeah.
Especially in VEX, I think it'll be so easy to max out a score.
But definitely huge strat game. I love it, to be honest. Like, I'm more of a guy who liked Turning Point. I enjoyed Turning Point. It was fast paced and it wasn't very strategic, but this is a welcome change. We do a lot of like theory crafting with that kind of stuff, and there's just so many options. You talk about, I mean, we'll get to it later, but you have the straight line and you have the diagonals. There's so much you can work. That's really nice.
I think they really made it so simple so that the strategy would really just evolve from day one. Over the season, we could just see very advanced strategy at the end of the season, simple game, and that's all that there really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only downside of this game is just the skills being a little too easy. I'd like to see a rule about only being able to make the diagonal lines with 3 balls in tube instead of just being able to make it with the top ball, which would be kind of nice, make skills a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they might add like more balls to the field. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if it's just for skills.
Yeah.
I feel like this year, the driver skills, I talked with the team for VEX. I mean, driver skills is already going to be super simple to max out. The cool thing is going to be is programming. The programming skills is going to be very impressive, I think, because for high school where you only have 1 robot and you have to be very accurate and very fast to be able to actually score. Literally, you have to take out certain balls and then you have to go and score them in other cups. Well, towers or whatever you guys want to call them. So the programming is going to be very advanced, but the driving is going to be the easy part this year, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
For sure. What do you guys think about like the point distribution of everything?
I think it's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, Auton is kind of broken.
Yeah.
In such a low-scoring game, 6 points is a lot. But
I do think the new Auton with home row is pretty cool, though. It's something new that we haven't seen.
Oh yeah,
before,
that's
The
super
whole-
cool.
I think this is the best change
And
ever.
I was wondering why they did that, and I was kind of thinking about it more, and like I don't know if this is the reason, but it kind of makes sense. So like last year, I feel like it was a pretty easy year to 1v2 because I feel like every regional tournament I went to, I was just with a push bot against two decent teams. But last year, I mean, it was full, you were fully capable to 1v2. You do an 8 cube auton and then do two 10-11 stacks. In driver, it's fully reasonable. But this year, I feel like it's kind of like turning point to where it's gonna be really difficult to try to 1v2. And I feel like Vex is kind of giving us kind of like a bone here just by doing this, because everyone's going to have the ability to score in all three towers or goals. Sorry, all three goals in autonomous, even if you're just one robot. And I think even if you just get absolutely smoked, you lose auton, you just get 1v2'd, even if you're a good robot, you can't do anything about it. They still give you that opportunity to give that one win point and make something out of nothing.
Yeah, the biggest thing is probably stopping trash teams from ranking 1. We've seen this a million times, right? You've seen teams with like no autonomous, rank 1 or 2. If you drop a match or two, right? But you have that autonomous that hits those balls, like you're going to be above those people, and that's just massive, I think.
Yeah. Like if teams get carried to the top of the leaderboard and don't have the best autons, I think this system implements like a way for the top teams at a competition to be placed where they should be. Like obviously, if they get a loss, then they'll be lower down on the list. But for everyone that is say 7-1 at a competition, odds are the best team is going to be at the top of that 7-1 list.
Mm-hmm.
Something unique, I think that they would be cool if they implement is if you had one robot do the home zone, if they got the points. Like if you had one robot put all 3 balls in, that team only got the 1 extra W. And if you both did it, then both teams got the W point.
Yeah. I mean, that's just something where I don't think Vex will ever do unless they do like a FRC styled like automatic scoring. Yeah, Vex has always just scored everything at the end of each period, and I don't think that they'll stray away from that because it seems like volunteers sometimes have a difficult time just counting up scores at the end of the match. So I wouldn't really count on some people at local tournaments to actually put that into initiative.
Well, like the thing with the point that Tilden made about like one team that just kind of sits there, I've had situations where both teams have been able to run like a good scoring auton, but one's more consistent than the other, so the other team won't run anything. So I feel like I mean the situation's pretty rare, but in those rare situations, if they did it like that, then the team not running it would not get the points for it, and they'd want to be like, oh no, let's run it, even if it's less consistent.
That's true.
So yeah.
All right. Also, I mean, this isn't really much to talk about. I just thought it was an interesting ad that they went to the FRC. I think it's FRC styled ranking system, where they basically average everything out. So it'll take your win points and then divide it by however many matches you had. So like this really, I mean, like I said, it's not going to change the system at all. But someone did bring up a good point yesterday that I talked to, and I can't remember who it was. But it was like, all right, there's always that one team that has like an extra match at lunch break. So I mean, I guess this kind of lets everything stay true to where it's like per match and average, and it's not gonna boost everything. I feel like it just makes everything easier. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, way easier to read and understand during matches.
Yeah, because I mean, win points is literally gonna be 0 to 3. It's so easy to read.
And I feel like what can be really cool is that, for example, at Worlds where you have 11 or 12 matches, for example, if you lose one match, but you win all your autons, you can still catch up to someone who wins all their matches, but doesn't win all their autons.
Exactly.
So I feel like if you deserve to be on top, they're still giving you a second chance to catch up.
Yeah.
Dang, that is crazy, and I actually never thought of that you can just have less total wins than someone and still be ranked higher than them. Huh.
That's why I think this is the best thing they've implemented in such a long.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
It's really nice. I like that.
Introducing AP back when it used to be SP ahead of AP. I mean, when they switched that to AP.
Oh my
that was
god.
And this is almost, I think, even better than that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, do you guys want to go into these robot in 1 day reveals? I think we should. So what we're gonna do is I'm just going to mute you guys, and then I'm just going to play it full screen, and then after it's done, I'll just have it playing in the background, and we can talk about it for a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next one, do the same thing, and then we'll move on. All right. So this is 3141S and 3141A's Robot in One Day. Everyone, enjoy.
Yeah, it's funny.
Till I'm good and done. I'm gonna push it harder, gonna climb up higher. It's like I just can't miss. I was made for this. I show the world I'm stronger. Prove it to 'em I'm a fighter. I can't help but win. I was made for this. I was made for this.
Oh.
Take his own.
All right. So that is the 3141S, 3141A Robot in One Day. I think you guys have all had the opportunity to watch it, maybe. But yeah, what do you guys think of it?
I thought it was really good. Super early build, but it was like fast, effective at scoring. I thought it was crazy how fast he was able to suck out of the tube and then place it in the top again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty close actual version of what I was thinking in my head when the game came out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to cycle time in this game as well as strategy. I mean, obviously you need your strategy, but if someone scores faster than you, there's a good chance that they beat you. So I feel like it's all going to come down to the time that you can descore, and then score again, or do those two at the same time, which we might see here in a couple minutes. But yeah, I think this is a really good robot. I mean, it's a really standard design. But yeah, props to 3141 because they didn't take anything from their tower takeover bot. This was a completely built from scratch robot, and yeah, I think it was a really good design. And in the video, you can kind of see how much these backboards I think are going to come into play, because a lot of the times it just shows the balls just ricocheting off the backboard and just falling straight down. So I feel like the backboards are there for those tolerance, and if you just throw it in the backboard, there's a good chance that it goes in. But also that brings up the difficulty that might come with the middle tower, and not having that backboard. But yeah.
Yeah,
I did
have
want
to
to
have a much more precise drop there.
Yeah, it's a little more precise in the actual game. I believe the tolerances are greater to where the ball fills up more of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a 6.3-inch ball and a 7.
Yeah.
So
Because I
it's
don't think
it's
the-
very tight.
Yeah.
So it'll be harder to score than in that video, but for one day, he's definitely on a great track
I agree.
to get speed. I think it'll all be about cycle time and when you choose to score. If you choose to score at the end of the match, closer to win, you can get rows done and secured, or if you choose to score the whole match and the strategy behind that.
Yeah, the top bots this year are going to be pretty similar. It'll just come down to like your drive coach and your driver deciding when to score and where to score. Like I think that's what it's going to come down to this year.
I like the ability to be able to hold. I like in this reveal how many balls they're able to hold as well, because if you're able to hoard, the other team can hoard in total of 6 balls of your color, right? You only have 16, if I'm right? So it might be quite scarce to be able to come across your balls across the field. So it might actually be really good to hoard all your balls in your robot and basically hold on to yours so that no one else can hoard them.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely nice to have the larger capacity, and then also for skills, being able to intake a bunch of balls will just make you more efficient scoring in all the towers during skills.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to the next spot?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, bet. If you guys haven't after this cast, this reveal might be public now. But yeah, go check out 3141S's YouTube channel, and you'll be able to watch that again, and maybe spark some ideas for this season in your first robot that you build. But let's get into our second robot, brought to us by Mankato Area Robotics Club, the VEX U team, as well as the past members from 8110. So yeah, a little different design than 3141 had, but you'll have to look a little closely to see how they have it done. But let's get right into it.
They always picked on him in the class. He would wake up with anxiety attacks. So he put the semi-automatic on his back. He got murder in his eyes. Yeah, he wore silence like a mask. Now he's making up for all the violence in his past. Looking from his father who never bothered to ask what his son had on his mind. Yeah, the kid just got the dark side. Best believe it. Push too far, you'll see. The kid just got the dark side. Back against the wall. La 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 la. The kid just got the dark side. Best believe it's the last trick up his sleeve. The kid just got the dark side. But you don't know me. The kid just got the.
All right, so that is 8110 and MARC's robot in one day. Thoughts and opinions on that robot?
I think it's just a step in the next direction of what a robot will look like with the use of the second set of rollers. It's like unique.
Yeah,
I agree.
like
The ability. I like the ability to be able to de-score and score at the exact, which would be one of the concepts earlier on was like essentially a low RPM flywheel that would just lob the balls when you're taking them out of the goal. I feel like being able to cycle 3 balls at a time very rapidly is going to be a huge advantage compared to just having to grab them and then have to lift up and then dump them again.
Yeah.
Because if you're from like a 3 or 4 second replacement to 1 or 2 seconds, it's a huge gap.
Yeah. And so this is only one robot design that at least I thought of, and we're going to cover multiple different designs later on in the cast. But it was the same design as 3141, but it was done differently, and it had another subsystem on it, being that de-score. And I think no matter what design you do this year, I think you need to be able to de-score while you score. And this kind of showed a preview of how you can do that, and one way to do that with a lift bot. But yeah, I think it was a pretty cool design. Props to them for only doing it in one day. That's pretty dang cool. But yeah.
For sure. And I like Andrew's robot was great, and it was a quick scoring robot that be great for like beginning game, but I think this is just as good and also has the capability to de-score while scoring, which I agree is going to be a huge feature.
Yeah, you're behind the curve if you don't have.
Well, I mean, not exactly behind the curve, but I think by the end of the season
No,
that
but
would be.
I mean, that's what I mean. I'm talking about.
That's what behind the curve means.
Yeah.
Roger, oh, go for it.
Like I said, by the end of the year, if we're not able to cycle through it very rapidly, you're just gonna get left behind, because by the time that you've done one, the other teams will have done two or even three. So 314NS's robot is very rapid, maybe for skills, but in terms of match scoring, it'll be one step behind, I think.
Yeah. I think the ability to do both, and then also I think this year is going to be a very, very physical year, with a lot of interaction, similar to Turning Point. And I think the one downfall I see with these types of robots with the lifts, is your center of gravity gets thrown off when you're lifting. It probably makes it a little more difficult to perform like defensive maneuvers, as opposed to something that wouldn't use a lift and would just like spit it out or something like that.
Yeah, and exactly. I think lift bots will be probably less used as the season goes on. But I think these side rollers were really a cool addition that made it more applicable. But the problem is that they used a motor or two that was taken away from the drive, which I think if you have a four motor drive like this robot did in this season, that's probably going to be a problem with all the defense that's going to be played.
Yeah, like the rollers are super similar to the China style intakes last year. It's pretty interesting that you're able to use that from season to season. I definitely think keeping a low center of gravity and also keeping a smaller robot that's not super big is not that I don't think it's not shown in this video, but I know there was a slider on that robot. They came out to allow them to hold more balls. And I just feel like if you're that big, it can cause some problems.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready to move on?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess so.
Cool. Also, again, shout out to UMN and 8110. If you guys haven't already, their reveal might be live now. It might be live after the cast, but yeah, definitely go check that out. But we are going to move into game strategy next. And first, I want to talk about this really quick in overall game design, and I kind of forgot to do it. But I'm going to just bring it up now. And I've seen a lot of people that didn't like the game when it was first revealed and then come around to it, today and after thinking about it for a little bit. And one of the main things that people didn't like about the game is that it didn't have an end game. So in the other two swing games we had, being Starstruck and Turning Point, you had those end games, whether it was the park or the hang. And they felt like something was missing in this game. And let me just say, the park and the hang were never used in very competitive matches. Like, if you're parking in Turning Point, it was not a good idea. And if you're hanging in Starstruck, not a good idea in high matches. It was that cool, flashy thing that people could watch, and it was entertaining to the crowd. But it's not that big of a loss that we don't have an end game this year, and it's really focusing on what the tastic hand is. With that said, though, I feel like this game might be really boring for like your parents to watch in the crowd, considering it's really small objects and it's just doing the same thing. But I think it's going to be really fun to play. But
I
yeah.
think the style of endgame that I guess the people that were said about it were thinking about was kind of like the gateway ending. I believe it was gateway. I was like 2 years old back then. Where you had like the doubler and the negator. I think something like that would have been introduced within like the last 30 seconds of the game. I think that's the sort of endgame that we were looking at. Something that would have been part of the game, unlike the hang and the park at the end of Turning Point and Starstruck, respectively. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still think that the end of this game is not going to be fun to watch, but it'll be fun to play.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, that's gonna be a whole lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So let's just move into match strategy. Just wanted to cover that real quick, put that out there. But yeah, let's move on. Okay. So moving into match strategy, the first thing I want to talk about is, what do you guys think, are the main goals for matches? Obviously it's just scoring in goals, but like, what do you guys think are the main priorities in each match that you compete in?
I looked at the scoring quite a bit, and I think the most efficient way isn't just to randomly score your ball within it. It's to put 2 blue balls on the bottom if you're red, and put your ball on top. You'd be giving 2 points to the blue alliance, but then you'd be getting 6 points to counteract that. So most of your goals, you'll want it to be blue, blue, red, or red, red, blue, depending which color. I think that.
Are you saying that because I haven't exactly looked on this? The row can be completed as long as you have ownership of the goal, not
Yes.
necessarily having the tallest,
Yeah.
the
It
third
doesn't
ball.
have to be the top, no.
Okay.
And do you believe this because of like the difficulty of them like changing the ownership because they'll have to if they score from the bottom they'll have to go through their own 2 balls before they get to yours?
Hmm.
Or otherwise,
Yeah,
or
that's
you just have the
I was,
the 2 points.
I was thinking. I was thinking more in putting. A lot of the designs as of right now are you intake. An idea I've had is you'd intake the 3 balls and then you'd recycle them into the tower, right? The disadvantage, well, the advantage of doing blue red if you're on red team is that if the blue team comes through and cycles out all 3 balls and then puts them in backwards, so it becomes red blue, it's super simple for you just to go grab the red ball and put it back on the top,
exactly.
compared to putting it in the middle. Or so in terms of keeping your balls safe and then doing that, I feel like it's gonna be more strategic to do 3 balls where.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge advantage. Putting yourself in the place to rescore your red ball as fast as possible.
If someone's saying that you want your color on the top and bottom, I mean, yeah, obviously you want your color wherever it can be, but you have to think of it realistically, right? You can't control plenty of goals with 2 balls. Like it just won't be able to happen. Not only will your opponent somehow end up with at least 1 or 2 of your balls, you're gonna have to look at getting bonuses to win this game. Like you're not gonna win based on sheer mass of balls in your towers or whatever cylinders.
Yeah.
I think early season, obviously, for like the summertime competitions, if you can just, for qualification matches, if you can just descore all of the opposing color and then just score your color, you'll most likely win. But I think as closer and closer we get to World, more strategies like that will become more prevalent.
Yeah. I think it's an Auton and driver game, like almost exclusively, just because improvements in the robot will be good. For the most part, drivers can just make it so it doesn't matter. Assuming the cycle time is fine or fine enough that the driver can make it fast. But I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I haven't really put much thought into this, but I want to know what you guys think about it. If it's almost more advantageous to have one of the opposing alliance's balls in the tower, as long as it's not a top ball, compared to having all 3 of the balls in that tower be yours. Like if it's almost more advantageous to keep one of the enemy team or enemy alliance's balls into the tower, because it
I
almost
would
takes it away
say
from them.
opposing ball, yeah. I mean, you think about if every say that everybody brings on these horde max, right? And so everybody, you're gonna only have 10 balls available. You start putting 3 balls in one goal. I mean, you're gonna run out real quick, too quick. Having those balls in the goal for the opposing team gives them less options to cap off. Especially if you might get to end game, there might be more balls in tower, right? It just gives you less options to go finish off a row. It's all about ball control, really. It's the name of the game.
Yeah, and
For
I
sure.
think as the season progresses, I think we're going to see a lot less people really worrying about what balls are in the goal, and I think we'll see a lot more of just people trying to maximize their cycle time because it's really a game of speed. So I think a lot of people will just be running around and throwing one on top if it's not full, or sucking one out and throwing one on top if there's 3 in there. I think that's very probable because that's probably more worth it than trying to really sort out the balls.
And that's what, there could be another strategy that pops up where what you worry about all match is just to get 1 ball in a random position inside of the tube. And then at the very end of the match, what you do is, let's say teams go to the design where whatever balls you intake, you feed them back in backwards. What teams could just start doing is they could drive up to a goal and they could keep on cycling it until their ball is on top. Because you'd have to cycle it twice for your ball to be on top in any combination, as long as you have one of your balls inside of it. So if the cycle times get so low that it gets efficient enough just to shoot all of them in a loop, essentially, it might become a new strategy to not really care about controlling it all match, just doing it at the end of the match.
The only problem with that is
Absolutely.
you might run into defense there, right? If you can just hit somebody and friction pin them the whole match, they're not going to be able to go up to your cops and start cycling through them. So that's a consideration with a strategy like that.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so we went over that. Moving on, how important do you guys think the middle tower is?
I think it's huge. It allows, if you don't score the middle tower, you limit so many of your rows. So I think it's a huge deal too with the middle.
Yeah, I mean the answer to that question is pretty simple. I mean it's dead center and it's a game of tic tac toe. So if that center isn't gone within the first 2 moves, then you've lost. So
Yeah, for sure.
I agree.
I mean, something that's interesting is like, so obviously the possible combinations with the center goal is 4, with the middle sides being 2 and the corners being 3. So it is definitely worth a lot more. But I think you may see it being more of a distraction almost. I mean, obviously it will be very important in some matches, but to encounter the defense that's going to be happening on the center goal during the end of the match, it's going to be more effective in certain matches to just run around the edges and break up their combinations, I think.
yeah, I mean it could be used as good bait.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a possibility.
Yeah. And I think in this game you just need to go in with the game plan of what towers you want to have, because I mean obviously there's so many different patterns that you can use and strategies that you can use to try to get a particular row, with there being 8 different combinations possible. But I think you definitely need to go in a match with, talking with your alliance partner and making sure that's clear with them on what your strategy is, whether it's just holding the middle goal and seeing if everything can fall around it, or trying to get some of the outer rows. But yeah, cool. Let's see here. What do you guys think also are like the more important towers other than the middle one?
Um, Going with what Mark said, it pretty much goes to corner then, because you get 3 different possible rows of the corner ones, compared to the only one that you get on the side ones, theoretically. For like at the end, although the phases at which you go for each of the goals, probably depends on both your opponents and your own capabilities. But yeah, it pretty much just goes middle to corners to the outer side ones.
Yeah, I think the most powerful row in the game right now, I mean, just looking at it, is definitely the diagonal row. Because if you get the diagonal, then they physically just can't get a row. And if you get a diagonal row and win Auton and you lose a match, there's something wrong.
And
Like, I don't know how anyone could get a diagonal row, win
I
Auton,
think
and
the
lose a
math has
match.
been done. I don't think I think it's nearly impossible. Right? There's like.
Yeah, I did it. And you literally, so if even saying that the only balls you score in the match are the 3 that are at the top of your diagonal towers, so you only score 3 balls the entire match, but you win Auton, you just have to hoard 2 of the other team's balls, and you physically cannot lose because you have 6 points from Auton, 6 points from the row, and then 3 points for the balls. So you're at 15, and the most that they can score is 14 points.
The only problem with focusing on a singular diagonal row is I don't think it's impossible to defend one goal, right?
Yeah.
If people know the value of a diagonal row, like if you're going for that bottom left goal in that picture, right? It's not hard to defend one goal. It's hard to defend them all, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, anybody can make it physically impossible for you to score on a certain goal, especially if it's in the corner.
Yeah, and I think when we see these wallbot or catbot strategies come out, I think that they're going to try to take advantage of this diagonal strategy.
Well, what a Catbot spell robot could do actually during Auton, what they could do is just fill up the goal with their color on top, with all their balls inside of it, and then they might actually just drop a cylinder on top of it, a Lexan cylinder that's screwed. So it's not physically possible to take it off, but it's basically guaranteed rows at that point in time.
Yeah, for sure. And then you can just attach it with string to your robot.
Yeah.
Well, they'd have to do that, but you'd also have to block the bottom because otherwise they could still descore through the bottom.
Yeah, that's why the cylinder would have to go all the way from the top to the bottom.
Oh,
of the
I see what you
tower.
mean. Sorry.
Because they can't descore from the top, they're not allowed to. If they were allowed to, it wouldn't work. But all you have to do is just do a tube that goes around it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If it's full and you have the top ball, you don't even have to cap the top. You just have to go around the bottom.
I mean, tube, just literally just a 3-inch ring where
Yeah,
the balls can't pop out of it.
exactly. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. The only problem, that's right. The only problem with that string is you got to just be careful with the entanglement. There's a balance there, right? Wall bots aren't perfect because you can't just run around all. If you drop a wall in a certain place, you might be movement limited. Obviously, you'll be movement
Talking
limited by
about
your
wall
wall,
bots now.
Yeah.
That is next
Some
in
level
the
of strategy.
script. That is next.
All right,
Let's go on to wall bots and cap bots.
this is
What do
gonna
we
be
think?
fun.
Those numbers
I
last
think
year.
Yeah, I think wallbots can be effective. I personally don't think I would build one just because at local tournaments and up until Worlds, you're gonna lose a lot of qualification matches, and then you're gonna be relying on other people picking it, which honestly just isn't always the best idea.
You're also relying on having a competent alliance.
Yeah, because picked by seed or something that just can't score, it's not like you can decline anymore. You're just too low in the qualifications to
Yeah,
get
exactly.
picked by another team, whoever picks you.
Yeah. And I think the state of wallbots is going to be the same this year as it was last year. I mean, going into last year, right after the game got revealed, everyone was just screaming wallbot. But in reality, it's just not that viable because the autonomous line, and it's the same thing in this game, due to that center tower. In tower takeover, wallbots weren't that viable because the center tower, you could get up to the autonomous line all you wanted, but you would have to despan, go past the tower, and then expand again to be able to block them off, and that would have to happen in driver control. Which would allow, if you have to despan, then anyone could just drive to the other side, make it a 1v1 on the other side, and then just have another robot on the other side. It's essentially a 2v1, and they are useless. Same thing in this game, because there is that center tower, and they would have to, get smaller before increasing to the size of the field
I don't
to block
think
it
you
out.
have to get smaller, but I think you have to get smaller before increasing to the size of the field. I think you could start expanded with 2 side drive bays on opposing sides of the field. At the beginning of the match, will move the 1 foot to get in front of those towers, and then the robot just have a clamp around the D part of the tower.
Around the D score, the middle tower.
Yeah, around the D score of the middle
Yeah.
tower.
I mean,
Option?
there's like I
Go
haven't
ahead.
thought like extremely in depth about it, but there's almost always a strategy to beat a wallbot. If you know you're playing against a wallbot, you position yourself smartly, you're pretty much always gonna win. I've done that for every single game that I've competed in. I mean, every single game won basically because Starstruck doesn't count. But essentially, there's always a way to beat a wallbot, and if you have one, I think you're banking on your opponent not being able to play against one, and I don't think that's the right way to play the game.
And that's actually where at Google with Tilden and one of the round of 16, I think it was, where our towers got knocked over. The teammate of that team had a lift bot, and what they were planning on doing was to tip over in front of our zone. So I know that the main strategy with us was, okay, we take shift. You go inside of the zone, I go grab cubes, and then I go score and you go grab cubes. Where if they do come in and tip over, we can just push them out because wallbots use the support of the walls to actually be able to hold their position. But if you push them away from that, they don't have a support anymore. So they're always they're easy to beat if you actually look forwards to it.
Yeah, I had heard about wallbots showing up at Worlds, and I'd like thought about the same kind of thing, right? That was like, and you'll see the same thing this year, right? Yeah, it's just positioning. If you lock down your home row, and especially in autonomous, it's like if a wallbot wins autonomous, I mean they might win, but how's a wallbot gonna win autonomous?
Yeah.
Have to be a 1v2.
And then also there's the problem with the current rules that are out with the possession of balls. So if you're preventing an opponent from getting to their ball and they're in reach of you, they count towards your possession limits, which is a weird rule, but that's currently out there. I'm not sure what it's called in the rule book, but it's out there. So
Kind of interesting. All right, did we get our fair share of wallbot and catbot talk?
Yeah, I think I think this is where we sort of move on.
Yeah. All right. Last thing in strategy before we move on to robot design, Auton strategy, and what do you guys think are going to be the main objectives in Autons, as well as what do you guys think are going to be the ideal pairing Autons?
I think you have to go for the home row just because the win point, and it's also a 6-point bonus to the like it's 6 points to you winning autonomous.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's
Agreed.
without question that needs to be done in autonomous. But with two robots, there's no way that takes 15 seconds. So, I mean, where would you rather? Would you rather put your focus in emptying out the other team's balls in your home row to make it so then you just have your balls in the home row, or would you rather kind of focus on the middle row after just putting your ball on the top and trying to get that middle control?
I'm just saying I wouldn't trust my partners to. I assume we're gonna have the same kind of rule with the balls rolling over.
No, it actually
No,
so
yeah.
it changed to where if it messes up the other team's auton, then it you can get penalized for it. But if it was
But I'm saying there's a chance that you will. Say you drop a ball in the center tower, especially in all like, there's a chance you might roll over and get in front of somebody, right?
Mhm.
And would you trust your partner? You might want to.
I probably wouldn't. I'm probably, from what I definitely do the 3 home row, just because in most of the tournaments I go to in Arizona, I don't think anyone else will score for probably the first 2 tournaments, honestly. So I think you have to just solely do that home row.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a very powerful auton to have the whole home row for like one bot scoring it, and I think that's what we'll see almost all top tier teams have. The trouble is what to do with the other robot, which I think the best thing would probably be getting in a good field position to score in the center tower or one of the side towers or something, probably.
I agree about the center tower, but I feel like during Auton, what'll happen is you'll have one robot that does the 3 home row towers, and then you're gonna get, if you look at the center tower on the field, if you get the blue balls on top of all, that means that you only need 3 balls. You have 4 ball total on your side. That's your color. So you have one robot that puts 3 in the top, so you have the home row that's owned. But then if you put 1 ball in the middle, you own almost every single. You own every single row except for the center row that is along the auton line. Because if the other team doesn't put a ball, or if they miss their ball, that's your row. Because of the way the balls are distributed in the scoring whole things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think it could definitely be split up into trying to score 2 each, or maybe even trying to get the center tower, just because the one at the top in the middle and the one at the bottom in the middle both start with a red and blue ball in it. So, I mean, it's very doable to get a row into that middle section, and very possible even to try to get 2 rows in autonomous. If you yet again, if you have a good partner.
I think that when it comes to Worlds by next year, it'll definitely be 2 rows.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the beginning of the season, for a top tier team, they'll look at just home row. Their partner will probably do something like they did this year, where they push like the 1 cube. Not like that's a cube, but they'll do a very simple autonomous. Grab 1 ball and just
Make sure they're not in the way.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the goal for when you're running a high level autonomous and you have a partner that doesn't have an autonomous.
Yeah, and looking at the field again, actually, it's pretty interesting because both the top middle and the bottom middle goals are completely full. So if you wanted to try to do one of these strategies, which I guarantee you we're going to see people try to score in these outer middle towers, or sorry, goals, you're going to have to descore a ball before scoring one in there, which I mean, it's on the Auton line, so it's going to be interesting to see the mechanisms that try to reach in there like sideways and try to grab a
And
ball
grab
out of
it,
there. Yeah.
I mean, you could always just be sneaky and cross over for a second.
You do that and tell me how that goes.
I'll just blindfold the ref. I'll just blindfold the ref, guys.
I mean, it worked
Yeah,
for
just flash a light real quick.
it worked for UNLVU against because in round of 16 at Turning Point Worlds Elims. They crossed the Auton line, and because didn't see it, and so UNL won Auton, and they won by like 1 point.
Sad.
I haven't heard this story before.
The saddest thing is Charlie didn't know until I had told him about it like 4 months after Worlds, and I thought he knew, and then he had no clue, and I was like, no,
The poor
bro.
guy.
He lost because they crossed the line, and you didn't know. And yeah, I talked to the rest of it because they were like, yeah, we knew. We just didn't want to know what Charlie would do if we told him.
Yeah. Poor Charlie.
Yeah. It's funny. But yeah, all right. What do you guys think? I think we talked enough about Auton. Move on to robot design.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So moving on to robot design, first thing we're going to talk about is just chassis design and tank drives, X drive mechanisms. What do you guys think is ideal for this year?
I personally am planning on running 4-inch X drive because there's no obstacle to climb over, and there's nothing to really push. So I think that a normal tank drive will be able to get pushed sideways, but if you have an X drive, you can hold your position, and you can actually I know that a couple of times at the U.S. Open with our mechanisms last year, we weren't necessarily pinning, but we were pushing robots up against the wall by strafing into them, and they didn't really know what was going on. And it sort of sounds tacky, but people get really confused with strafing when it comes to defense.
Yeah, it also allows you just outmaneuver your opponents by so much that you can just swerve away from them. So even if they're trying to play defense on you, you're so much more mobile that you can just drive sideways and get to the goal really quickly.
I think that tank drive will probably be the most effective drive as it is every year. I mean, the problems with X drives are that they're just less efficient and less powerful. And in this game, I mean, speed is very important, speed of drive, which tank drives are just going to have more speed. You're going to be playing a lot of defense, and they're not the same under defense because they have less power, really. I mean, field-wise, this is the most comparable to Nothing But Net, I would say. And if we look at that game, I mean, the best robots were certainly not X drives because they just weren't fast enough. The best robots were going to be like Disco and 400X just because they were so fast, and that's a lot easier to get with a tank drive, I think.
Yeah, but you also have to look at programming skills, and X drive gives you a huge advantage there, being able to strafe sideways and intake balls and efficiently go to the next tube.
Yeah, I do agree. For Auton and programming skills, X drive does have some advantages for sure. I don't think it's worth sacrificing the advantages of a tank drive for Auton skills. And really, in Auton, if you have a tank drive plus better code, like curves and stuff like that, you can really be almost as good as an X.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Ever since this game's come out, that's the only thing that I've been thinking about because I think the rest of the robot's pretty simple. I think personally, I think everything else can be done in 2 motors.
Absolutely.
So the problem comes then if you are going for an X drive, if you're going for 4. I don't think speed's going to be a problem with the 4-motor X drive. I'll say that now. I think the problem is if you plan on playing a more defensive game, you're screwed. And I think this is where this game's heading. But I think there are ways to win the game before it gets, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely positional play and avoiding contact and defense with an X drive compared to just like ramming other people. You have to be a smarter driver. You can't just want to push people with the amount of torque you have. You have to play smart. And
Yeah, and it's tough, right? To get everything out of an X drive, you have to. I mean, for one, you have to have a smart driver, a good driver. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that point when deciding to go with an X drive. I don't know. This year it's interesting, especially with the whole thing, being able to do everything else with only two motors and having like an extra two. Whether or not you'd actually want to go for a six motor drive or make everything else faster with those two motors, I don't know. I still haven't figured it out.
Yeah, I think if we were in a vacuum where there were no other robots in the field, X Drive would be perfect, right? Especially having the ability to like go on a row and just slide sideways and drop off. I mean, that sounds beautiful. The problem is, your defensive ability to play on people is just so hindered that you have to really take that into consideration. I think from a raw scoring standpoint, X Drive reigns way supreme. But the problem is you have to deal with six motor drives pushing, and it might get tough.
Yeah. I think no matter the go for it.
I agree with you guys' point about running tank drives, but I know that the U.S. Open last year when we won with Pigpen, our major strength was we didn't use it very often, but you can see sometimes where we're actually strafing to keep robots boxed in. So to push a robot, you need quite a bit of torque, but to be able to hold a robot, you don't necessarily need that much torque. Now,
yeah, it's a more positional style of defense than just brute force.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
agree
where,
with
like,
that.
a lot of
Sorry,
robots,
go.
we just they weren't able to actually stand up to the strafing and actually like, because when they have to turn to be able to go around us, we just strafe in front of them again, and we just continuously push them.
Yeah, it's less movement to get to the next point or the point you need to block out.
Yeah, I mean it's smart driving versus just six motor full torque. Going for strength, right? Like it
And
depends
especially
on
with
how your driver and your team's gonna react.
and with V5 motors nowadays, if you just put them in brake type hold, I don't really think it matters how many motors you have in your drive. A four motor drive will be able to stop an eight mode drive in a pushing battle. Like they won't outpush them, but they won't get pushed backwards significantly.
I think something that's been neglected to talk about so far is both wedges and skirts, which utilizing mechanical advantage can be pretty brutal. And a well-made six-motor drive with wedges is gonna destroy any four-motor drive unless they also have counter wedges or skirts to help mitigate the damage. And I think having some sort of defensive wedges or skirts is almost necessary. And without it, I think you're going to get bullied a lot.
Yeah, I
Even
agree
with
with that.
I totally
I
agree
think
with that as well. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tillum.
I was gonna say I think one of the advantages of X Drive, if you do add skirts, you can make them into almost a small wedge, and you can strafe sideways and use your wedge on people.
And I totally agree about the usefulness of wedges because Roger at the U.S. Open Division final, you were the only robot that we could not push. Like the only robot
Yeah.
that was not able to get pushed by that thing. Like we had a four motor, like super heavy robot, but it just wasn't possible to keep up with you.
Yeah, the mechanical advantage.
Perfect
Someone's
example
asking
of
for a
wedges
picture of
is
the skirt.
just 8,000B in Turning Point. That thing was just a tank, a robot, and it had. There's videos of me just getting absolutely couldn't. So its power, even we had skirts, right? You're going up against somebody with skirts, and you can still, if you know. That's on a track 169 traction drive too.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it really just comes down to power and speed, and that's what's really going to matter in this game. And I think Tank Drive just has a lot more of that. I mean, I do admit, like some teams have been able to pull off omnidirectional drives, or like recently, like obviously 7K and 5225 this year have done an excellent job there. But I think it really takes a lot more, and I don't think it's worth it. especially for most teams. You know, most teams aren't going to have the skills it's going to take to really utilize that, I think.
Yeah, like definitely for X Drive, if you're not running some sort of ODOM like code, the benefits of an X Drive and programming skills are far, far less.
Yeah, and exactly. If you do have ODOM code, that tracking code, that is really equally beneficial with a tank drive as an X drive. Really, it's the ODOM code that makes the code good, not the X drive. Really.
Yeah, but
I'm gonna disagree with that.
I'm
The
gonna
movement that you
disagree
have
as
with an
well.
X drive makes it insanely stupid. Like
yeah, you're
having a tank
able,
drive ODOM versus having an X drive ODOM is actually very different.
like you can see back in the zone year with Pylon's X Drive, they had ODOM on that robot, and yes, it was Cortex motors, but the movements they were able to do with their programming skills this year was
We also had quite a few resets. I mean, I say quite a few. I don't know our code inside out, but we had resets. We had places where we had to slow down because it wasn't as accurate as we wanted it to be.
yeah.
But XTry with the Dometry is far, far more accurate. Well, not necessarily accurate. Accuracy
It's
is
just
the
instant.
same. Exactly, because if you only have, let's say, an error of 500, we'll call it ticks. If you only have an error of 500 ticks in the x-axis, you have to turn 90 degrees. Then you have to drive to your coordinate, and then you can't face the angle you want to face. Unlike with an X-drive where you can actually tell it, I want you to face this coordinate and drive to this coordinate at the same time. So I think that X-drive is far superior in terms of autonomous. I think you can do the same thing with a normal tank drive, but I think it'll be far more efficient, and you can have
What
a
are you
slower
doing?
drive.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be interesting to see what teams can do with tank drive plus ODOM this year to really see how that'll work.
It just makes more sense running an X Drive with ODOM because you're able to turn while driving to your target point, and you're able to pick points on the field that you want to aim at and get to your endpoint all at the same time. So it's just going to be a faster way to get to a certain spot on the field at a certain angle.
Again, this is all assuming that you have really good code.
Well, yeah, but
This is for a top little
top
percent
10
of
teams. Yeah.
The
But I
amount
mean,
of
look
people with the ability to do X Drive this well is not that big. It's a minority, but
Yeah, X Drive is something that can be really good for the top teams that have amazing programming, a great driver who's good at playing positional defense and not just wanting to brute force their way out of situations, and someone that's interested in skills. If you're not interested in skills, X Drive value goes down by a lot.
Yeah, I think Xdrive really thrives in programming skills, and you don't get the full factor of an Xdrive unless you have really solid code. Not because it's really hard to program it, but just because, you're kind of losing out on the capabilities if you don't have a really solid programming skill score.
I mean, look at 5225A's programming skill last year. Well, during Tower Takeover.
It's insane.
There's no way you can do that with the tank drive. I'm sorry.
No.
Like, you can have the best tank drive in the world. I don't care. There's no way you're doing it.
Insane.
Like,
yeah.
if you can do it, hats off to you. But there's no way.
Yeah, you just lose so much speed by having to turn and then drive forwards and then turn and drive forwards compared to they're able to just drive forwards while turning to the next point. It just saves so much time that it's really efficient.
Yeah, and I think.
Yeah, and I
go for it.
sorry, Nolan, go ahead.
No, you go, baby.
I saw a comment from Cole, and it's that you can essentially, and then the way I'm gonna take it and reword it is, you can make X drives fast enough. And I know I said it earlier, but I'm saying it again. X drives will be fast enough. Like
Yeah.
It's, especially with these V5 motors, speed is not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, like obviously 5225A showed that the robot was plenty fast enough for last year. And if you do the math, a 4-inch X drive on 200 RPM, 4-inch wheel X drive on 200 RPM is plenty fast for this game. It's probably almost overly fast. And that's a ratio you could run, or you could run 3.25-inch wheels. There's tons of ways to get the speed that you need with an X drive.
Yeah, and I think it really honestly doesn't really matter what you drive, chassis wise, whether it's an X drive or tank. I think it's just really what you're comfortable with. Like it's like 7K. A lot of people didn't like that they use mechanisms, but it's like one they're comfortable with. They drive it incredibly well, and that's what works for them. You need to find the chassis that you like using, and drive it to your advantage. But with that said, I think whatever design you do choose, you need to be fast. And this year, I think we're gonna see shades of like nothing but net in the fact that these robots are just flying around grabbing these balls, because in nothing but net, sometimes the balls were all the way across the field and you need to come all the way back. I feel like that's going to be the case sometimes, where there's only going to be two or three of your balls on the field. You got to drive to the other side of the field. You got to come back and score in this goal because that's the one you're trying to score. It's not like tower take or turning point. Where if there's not a ball close to you, you just push someone into a wall. I feel like you're going to want to be really fast, and I think speed is going to be more important than pushing power. But yet again, I think defense is also still going to matter in this game.
I think you're also going to be able to use your X drive to avoid other robots. Like if you're having a pushing battle on one side of the field between the center row of goals, you'll be able to strafe around that much faster and get to your like a corner goal super efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, just something that I want to mention is like when you're playing the game, there's different types of defense, right? There's just the sheer brute force defense, and then there's smart defense. There's positional defense, right? Like guarding a position on the field, or guarding, I guess in this case, balls on the field. You can do that with an X drive. You can play smart with an X drive. Like you don't need a 6-motor tank drive to play defense. There are other ways to do it. I mean, I'm not giving anything away here. This is common knowledge. So, and so like if the argument is going to be made that you can't play defense, it's dumb. Like it's not an argument.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you guys are saying X drives aren't fast enough either because you can't gear them, that also I totally disagree with, because 200 RPM 3.25-inch X drive is equivalent to 220 RPM tank drive. So you're getting a little bit faster than normal drive, and you're still having quite a bit of torque. But if you just want to play the speed game, maybe you run 4-inch wheels on an X drive with 200 RPM motors, it's equivalent to 280 RPM. That is 23 extra RPM compared to 3 to 7 600 RPM motors, which is the usual sped up base. So I mean, the amount of speed that you have from an X drive is absolutely insane.
Yeah, for sure.
And honestly, I don't think you should be going too much over the 280 barrier, just because your torque goes down so much and your robots are getting so fast that when someone else gets in your way, they're just out of control. Like anything over 300 RPM on 4-inch wheels, you have to be either a top 10 driver in the world who's practiced 1,000 hours that year, or you're going to crash into walls and you're going to be less efficient than someone driving a 200 RPM base.
Yeah.
That just doesn't hit walls.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think that's somewhere we really may be surprised this year. I think we'll see a lot faster robots than we really think we've seen. Like, I think we'll see a lot faster tank drives than you'd think. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
But as we found in like Turning Point, even with your world's brought, Mark, you did have some problems with burning out with the 4-motor drive on 260 RPM on 4-inch wheels?
It was 277, I think.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much faster you can go with any sort of pushing. And if you're really worried about a pushing battle, having that much speed, I'm not sure if it's going to be realistic. Especially seeing how light that robot compared to probably what you'll build this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, as well, like in high school, the barrier of around 300 RPM is a barrier for high school. The barrier for VEX U can go up to 350 or so, because you can simply run an 8-motor chassis and not care about the number of motors you're running. Like, I know that my team personally is going to be running an 8-motor drive on the big body just because we can, and because we're able to actually run those types of speeds. It's for VEX U, the barrier is going to be a lot higher than high school.
Yeah, for sure. I think we covered a good amount of chassis in here. We do have one person in the cast asking for us to talk about Swerve Drive, but I'm going to leave that up to you guys if that wants to actually get discussed or not.
I mean,
Is it like
cool.
unironic?
I don't know. They said what about
it's
Swerve
definitely
Drive?
cool.
I mean, good luck getting it right.
It's a cool
That's all I'll
YouTube
say.
video. That's all I'll say. It's a cool YouTube video. You could
Yeah,
get
make a
views. You can
tutorial,
get some
post it
cool
on YouTube.
views. I don't know
Yeah.
if you'll win anything, but you'll get some views. If you want
We did
that,
talk
build
about
a swerve
games,
drive.
but I don't think that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to intake. So, with the intake, we are having two different things that we are looking at. There might be more out there. There might not be. But we basically are going to talk about horizontal rollers and vertical rollers. So, in the two RA1Ds that you guys saw earlier in the stream, those were both horizontal rollers. It's like it's exactly like the tower takeover rollers, just where you have one on each side, grab the object, and roll it in. But the vertical rollers is kind of like 118 FRC in 2020, where it's a roller that comes over the top, or I guess like Turning Point, where you have a roller that comes over the top and then sucks it up that way. So I was just wondering what you guys think is better, and yeah, what do you guys think?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. Like I've thought about designs with both, and I think it's too early to
Yeah.
decide that
And
one's gonna be better than
So,
the other. Like
so
I think
the obvious
be tested.
advantage of horizontal rollers is that you can de-score, but it seems like the vertical rollers are going to be way better for like field play. We don't know that yet, but just by seeing like all the FRC games, whenever there's balls rolling around the big field, they always do vertical rollers because it allows you to be way more inaccurate when you're running around the field trying to grab balls. If you have horizontal rollers, you have to be spot on with that ball. But if you have a style intake just like Turning Point, that ball only has to be within the grasp of your intake, which is the width of your robot. So with the vertical intake, you can be a little less accurate, but there's not really a way to de-score right now with vertical rollers, which is huge.
sure
And obviously,
they'll-
you need to be able to de-score. And I think we'll probably see people do vertical rollers and then find a way to de-score, have a mechanism that does that. But what do you guys think? Is better off your initial thoughts?
I'll say early on, people are gonna go for horizontal rollers mostly. I think.
Yeah.
It seems way easier, and a vertical roller that has to be pretty tall, with the balls being so big, right? So early on, I don't think we've seen everything here. I think this is something that's really gonna get developed the most.
I think the most popular early season design is obviously going to be your like 6-bar, 4-bar,
Oh, yeah.
just toss-up style
yeah.
robot with the side roller intakes, and it allows you to de-score from the towers
Yeah.
quite nicely. But
Yeah, and we're
I
gonna.
do think there are some advantages to a top roller, like you said, with a huge wide intaking range. But I definitely think there's ways to make your side rollers have a really big intaking range, and some of them have even come up in like FTC. With side rollers, and you can look back on like gluten free from last year.
Nolan, just a quick note. Can you put Roger back
Oh God, Roger has.
on the overlay?
Oh no. All right. Yeah.
I feel like side rollers for intake from the outside to be able to de-score fairly rapidly, but I know that I personally am trying to do a top roller inside the middle of the robot. So I feel like top rollers are really good for moving the ball around the robot, but not necessarily for grabbing them from the field. Because if you need to run two different intakes, it's more efficient just to run one intake with two motors, if you see what I mean. Instead of using two intakes with one motor. With two intakes, two motors, just one intake, two motors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see horizontal rollers being used throughout the season. I mean, those can definitely be made to have the wider pickup radius that I think teams are going to need, and like we saw back in toss with the magic rollers.
Because I mean, you can make the range super wide with those rollers.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think it was shown quite well that back in Gateway, when people were picking up balls like almost identical to these, they were able to do it quite fine with side rollers. And if a top roller had been more effective, I'm sure they would have tested that out and done it.
Sorry,
Not saying
guys,
that you
give me a
shouldn't test it out this year, but that the side roller could be quite effective.
Didn't they also have barrels to deal with though? So like,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a thing. That's a consideration. So maybe not.
With toss up, they didn't have to. They only had balls to suck up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
but
again,
a vertical roller was
How are we gonna do a big ball with a top
yeah,
roller?
top roller was not possible with the large balls.
then it's
Yeah, not
basically
if
the
you
same
wanted to do
situation.
it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that having the side roller allows you to D-score so fast compared to the top roller, which basically gets you stuck with having to have another mechanism to pick out the balls.
Yeah.
And I think lowering your mechanism count will just improve your consistency and also your overall speed.
Yeah. I think early season we're definitely going to see more horizontal intakes than vertical. But late season we might see some cool designs come out with some vertical intakes and, a different mechanism to try to D-score, but we're a long way from that. So I think we've talked enough about this. Let's move on to the lift. This is a big talking point for a lot of people. A lot of people say you don't even need a lift this year. With the goals being 18.6, I believe, maybe 18.5 inches tall, and your robot being able to be 18 inches, is there even a need for a lift? What do you guys think?
I think you definitely could get away with not having one. I don't having one either. I think both are viable options.
Well, I for one think that having a lift is definitely a downside. I mean, it's so much more moving momentum and mass that it's just mass that you have to move. You really don't have to. It's just going to make your bot heavier. It's going to make your cycle time slower, and I think it's going to lead to a lot less effective of a robot.
Yeah. And I think again, early season we're gonna see a lot of these lift bots just because they're easy. You saw two really good lift bots made in one day earlier. Like, I mean, those were pretty exceptional robots that could do completely fine in competition this year, I believe.
Yeah,
But
I would agree.
I think at the end of the year, it's going to be no lift bots that are going to be the best. Just not having to lift up. I mean, if you have something like the 8110 reveal did, where you can still D-score, lift up, and score at the same time, that might be viable. But I think you want to have the D-score funnel right into your intake, which you can then score again. So then you just don't have as much moving parts. But yeah, I think you want to be able to D-score while putting the balls in the zone or in the goals without lifting at all at the end of the year. Roger, what do you think?
About what?
Having a lift or not having a lift?
I told you at the beginning of the stream, and I continue to think so, that I think it's very viable to have no. And I think, especially if you looked at, although I know we haven't been talking about VEXU, especially look at VEXU with the 24-inch. I think
Yeah.
not having a lift again is an advantage, because I think the lift aspect causes you to need to take more action. You need movement when you dump, which can in certain situations limit you on what you can do. For example, if there's someone like behind you and they shove into you, if you have a lift, unless you have like an aligner, it can screw you up. And then also with a lift, you're gonna have changing center of gravity, so it's gonna make driving a little different. Probably not enough to be too noticeable, but when you're operating at those top speeds and there's people playing defense on you, I think it's best to not have to use a lift. I think it's viable. I don't know if it's the best idea though.
Yeah, and we've said this multiple times during the cast already, but robots are gonna be going real fast this year, I think, and it's all about cycle time. And if you can avoid moving an entire subsystem and just staying on the ground, keeping your center of gravity really low instead of having to raise a 4-bar or 6-bar every time you score, it's really going to help out that the simplicity of your robot as well as the overall speed. Just because if you're just driving up to a goal super fast, not even having to lift, you're just scoring them right away. That's super fast. But if you have to raise a lift and then go back down to intake balls and then go back up, I don't know, it's just another mechanism. And with the 24 and VEXU, if I ever see a VEXU team that has a lift in for their 24, I'm going to be really sad, to be honest, because you can literally just plop them in. You don't even need a shooter. You just have an intake that just runs and it just dribbles out the top. It's not hard. But Yeah, I'm just gonna point that out how easy VexU is this year. They're letting us use both robots in skills, in a skills where it's going to get maxed out in high school.
Honestly, if you can't max it out in VexU by September, there's a problem.
Literally
Okay,
two
it's
toss-up
September,
bots.
if you
Straight
have
up two
control of your
toss-up
bots,
bots.
yes.
You have the two robots that were built and revealed today. If you put those together, they're maxing out skills.
Yeah.
It's
Dude,
if they
literally put
Yeah, they would both max out skills. There's 15 balls for you to score. 9 of those 15, you score 3 at the same time in each goal because there's 3 goals that have nothing in them. So 9 of the 15 balls are all just deposited in only 3 goals, and then the other 6 just have 1 ball on top. Simple strategy. That's not really giving anything away. That's just what everyone's going to do. But 15 balls, even in high school, that's a ball for every 4 seconds. Like, that
Honestly,
people were doing
two
that in
Vex-
Tower Takeover. Like, you guys would score 20 like 8 cubes in 6 towers or something like that. Ridiculous. It was like a cube every 2 seconds, and now we have 4 seconds to do it. And in VexU, they're giving us 2 robots instead. I don't understand.
honestly in VexU, you could probably obviously you have to slightly modify it for the claw to actually be good. You put 2 clawbots on a VexU team with 2 good drivers, you can beat
I would agree with that. If you're honestly going for skill, like as a VexU team, building a simple robot and just getting a ton of driver practice and good programming, I think you could max it out pretty quickly.
For sure. Yeah.
I wonder if Dome is gonna be a bunch of ties. Like, what are they gonna do?
It's gonna come down
skill?
to-
I have a feeling they're gonna change skills.
Yeah, they have to.
No way.
Or they say you can stop the clock, or you finish in 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, they do it. They do a timer. How much time you have left in the run when you finish?
I think the thing that will change is you have to make the tic-tac-toe row on the 3rd ball. I don't think you'll. I believe what they'll change is making it so the 3rd ball is the only ball that can make the tic-tac-toe, not just any ball in the goal.
That would still make skills. That wouldn't change skills at all with the way it's laid out, because the near goals are empty, the middle goals have 2 balls in it, and the far goals are full. So you put all 3 in each of the near ones. You literally just have to put 1 on top in the middle ones, and then you descore 1 and put 1 on top in the far ones.
Yeah, but at least you're descoring and doing something more.
Well,
than just
you'd
sitting
have to
there.
descore anyway to get max height. Like, there's 3 in the far ones. You'd already have to descore three balls to get that max score,
Do you
just
have
as it
enough
stands
balls? Do you have enough balls to fill the 3 in the back all the way up with red?
now.
I don't think you do.
Well, there's 15, so 9 of those 15 are used on the goals in your home row because they're empty, and then you just put 1 in each of the other 6, and that's all 8 rows, and that's all your balls. Easy.
I don't know. They'll maybe have to add more balls or
Yeah,
change it
probably
up in
they
some
gotta
way.
add balls or something. Match loads.
Match
Or just a
load,
super
baby.
high goal. They'll do like a 6-stack high goal.
They
in the
won't.
middle
They
of the
won't
field,
change
completely
game
change the
elements.
game.
They won't change elements. If anything, they just
Yeah.
add balls.
even then they can't because people have already ordered.
Yeah.
The game's been released. That's what people thought during Tower Takeover. Oh, they'll have to change it. No, it's been released. They can't. It's too late for them to do that.
The only season that they gave themselves the opportunity to add more elements was in the zone. But even after that, like in Tower Takeover, I don't think people thought they were going to max out the skills that year, but they didn't need to add elements. And this year, I don't think they're going to be able to add elements because people have already bought them. What are you going to do? Send them more? Make them buy more? I just don't think that's going to be really something they're interested in doing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean, there's really not much to talk about skills. I don't really want to get into strategy either. It's pretty self-explanatory. But yeah,
Yeah.
did we talk enough about lifts and if we thought they were viable or not?
I think so. I mean,
I think so.
Cool.
if
Um,
anyone wants to add anything.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think we're good. One thing I do want to talk about is really quickly is pneumatics. I mean, obviously VexU, they're going to be viable. They're viable every year, but we haven't seen a V5 game yet where pneumatics are really even usable. Like we've seen it on a couple teams, but whenever the meta comes around, it's just pneumatics are just completely out of the question, and I want to see pneumatics back. And in my opinion, this is the V5 game that has the best chance of being able to use pneumatics efficiently. But I just want to see what you guys think of it.
I don't think so.
I think you still lose too much for two V5 motors. Back when Cortex was around, two Cortex motors wasn't the biggest deal, but two V5 motors are so powerful that you can either just add them to your drive and make the systems out of two motors, or you can just have a motor do it and be faster anyways.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the years where it's possible, but I don't think
Yeah.
we'll see it.
I don't-
You're going to see motors, especially drive motor power. You're going to see, I think, people go for 600 drives. It's
Yeah.
going to be the.
And I don't think we'll see it, to be honest, until they increase V5 motor limit. Hopefully they do that soon. That would be cool. I want to see that. But yeah.
The thing about it is that they might be trying to move away from pneumatics even. Like that could be a
Pneumatics are a
strategy.
super expensive thing that not a lot of teams have.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
if
VEX
you're on a
wants to make
budget-
it not viable on purpose.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
would agree
maximum.
with that.
And the thing about pneumatics is that it's on or off. With what you're seeing in VEX, they're trying to make everything using sensors, or you can put it to this position or that position. And with the new V5, the new V5 motors, the V5 motors now, they're just so powerful that you could make a linear slide as fast as pneumatics by using two motors, stronger than pneumatics, and more accurate than pneumatics. So like pneumatics have just run out of use essentially.
And
Yeah.
not that this is a huge reason why VEX doesn't want to sell pneumatics is they don't actually manufacture pneumatics. There's SMC does, so I'm
I
sure
mean,
they
that-
don't
that
make quite
probably
as
is-
money.
Yeah, you don't make money.
They don't make quite as much money on selling pneumatics as they do selling motors.
Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
That's the only one that matters for them.
VEX is a company, you
Oops.
know.
Yeah.
Like REC
Exactly.
and VEX work together.
Yep.
The only real way to make pneumatics viable is obviously to do a bunch of small mechanisms or something with them. And the only way to really try and do that this year is you would have to try and do a 2-speed transmission on your drive to try and match both the speed and power of a 6-motor drive or something, and then use it for like a hatch for sorting, which you probably don't need. So it's probably just not viable this year.
Yeah.
And you get all that extra weight with that too. I mean, it's like you get the tanks and then you get a whole transmission system. And
True.
it's
exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, the last time transmissions were really ever viable was back with 44 and toss up in those type of games when Vortex motors were still around and they weren't really that powerful. So pneumatics
Back when
were
you didn't have to give
useful.
up motors to get pneumatics.
Yeah.
that was cool. Yeah. Well, we brought up sensors, and that is the next topic. So this would be a good leeway in to the next topic. What do you guys think about the new sensors, the VEX AI sensors?
I was really disappointed that they're not allowing us to use them.
So
Pretty
yeah,
much my
that's the thing
takeaway.
is I think that they're unclear. I know we can't use the sensors that use the tape, but they still had a couple other sensors that were released with that, and they really didn't explain if any of them were going to be legal or not. The thing that worries me is it was exactly like V5 in what was that, Starstruck Worlds when they first announced V5. I mean, the thing said patent pending on it, and there was no physical model of the actual sensors. It's like they're almost not even in manufacturing yet. Like they're still testing them, and they just like, all right, hey, we have these products, but they're not available yet. And I feel like it's just going to turn into another V5 thing where it's just, okay, we're going to wait a year and tell you next year.
I can also see them trying to use the AI competition to test it out, and also probably they have either investors or sponsors that are in the AI field and they want to promote that type of STEM activity.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
is the right way for STEM education overall.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess they did have the V5 beta testers, so I mean, they might just use the AI competition or the whatever it's called to kind of beta test these sensors before they put them out and use them in high school.
Looking at it from our perspective as VEX competitors, right? We're into VEX, but if you look at it from maybe REC's perspective, right? They're the Robotics Education Foundation. They're not the VEX Foundation, right? Their goal is to move it in a direction that's beneficial to robotics education, and a competition that's focused on AI is of the most benefit to robotics education. So I think that's a huge
Well
for
said.
why this is valuable.
I do have a quick question. Can you, that's not really related to sensors, but I was just looking at the field appendix or the skills appendix. Do you have to start touching the wall, or as long as you're touching your home zone?
I believe it's the wall, but
What, to start the match, you said?
Yeah, to start the match.
I can pull it up.
What was the question? If you have to touch your wall or what?
or
If
if you
you-
can just be in your home zone.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's going to be wall.
They do say that robots may start the robot skills match per SG1 in either home zone and with the drive team member standing in the alliance station. So,
I
Alright.
think they got rid of the wall stuff this year because the home zone is an actual.
zone
No,
on the
it-
field.
No, it is the home zone. Yeah.
Cool.
So just anywhere inside the home, touching the home zone or fully inside.
I
Fully
believe it
inside.
says fully contained.
Fully.
So that means basically 6 inches off the wall, basically about because 24-inch tile, it's at the end of the tile. So.
All right.
It's kind of cool.
And that's where
Kind of different.
I hope VEX U tournaments actually do the tape properly, because you might not want to run a 24-inch long robot if the tape is on the wrong side of the tile or wrong side of the junction.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Well, I think
That might
you would
actually
probably tell the refs to fix the tape because it would be
Yeah.
obvious if you pass inspection and your robot's over the somebody's lying or somebody screwed up. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it not?
All right.
I don't know. I really hope for with the sensors category they were talking about some sort of new rotation sensor, which I think they were coming out with a higher resolution because 360 ticks is very low.
Yeah.
Compared to like what you can buy online, which are giving like 4,000 ticks a revolution.
Yeah. And what do you guys think are going to be the best sensors this game?
Well, it depends on which ones they use. Like the distance sensor looks pretty cool. It's basically just a better vision sensor.
I mean, yeah, we got to see how it plays first, right? Like some of them just might be unusable.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm meaning like even the old sensors, like the ones we have available.
You mean like the legacy ones?
No, like the ones we can use right now,
Okay.
like vision and inertia sensor.
I think inertial sensor is good for simpler level programming, like just great turning, really reliable, can help you get into the autonomous program.
Mm-hmm.
I actually feel like the inertia sensor combined with odometry with specific way to actually make it run instead of 25 millisecond delay, because it only refreshes every 25 milliseconds.
Yeah, that's something that Gautier and I have been working on with getting the gyro to update because it only updates every 25 milliseconds. So coupling that with odometry on encoder wheels can give you a little bit more accurate position tracking.
Yeah, I think that inertia sensor is pretty good for new teams into programming. It's a really consistent option that it's really not hard to use and something that's pretty dang accurate, which is something we didn't see from the last VEX gyro.
Yeah. I still feel like it could be a more all-in-one sensor, which I think the GPS sensor they're coming out with would be, but unfortunately it uses the tape. And even once they allow that in the competition, I'm not sure how I feel about using tape that volunteers place on the wall. Because what if they put it upside down or what? There's so many unknowns.
That's actually the reason why they don't want to allow it, is because A, they don't have people like me buying the tape, and second of all, they don't think event partners will be capable of setting up the tape properly.
Yeah.
And that's literally the reason they gave. I don't know where I saw it, but that's literally the exact reason why they gave it, is that it wouldn't be fair to teams who have the option to and teams who don't because event partners aren't competent enough to do it.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, we got through all the topics. To kind of close it up here, final thoughts on the game after first looking at it, having a couple days to do it. And I also want to hear your guys' prediction for the meta at the end of the season. Go for it.
You go in order?
Anyone want to kick it off?
Shit, I'll start actually. This
Okay.
game, I liked it. I liked it right off the rip, and a lot of people are liking it more after diving into it. I like it even more after ending. I think it's simple. I think it's gonna be fun to drive, to program, and to build for. It's not that hard to do, so all these new teams can actually be competitive. But I think it also gives an edge to all the veteran teams and the better teams. I think that's good, and I think by the end of Worlds, the meta is going to be no lift robots, something that can descore while scoring at the same time, just drive up to a goal, can put 1 to 3 objects instantly, like right into the goal, however many they want, and just be able to descore however many they want at the same time. Really fast drive as well.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with you when you say that it gives an edge to the already good teams just because of the simplicity of the game. I think there obviously, as there are every year, there's ways to make it happen to get your edge, but I think it's less possible in this
How do
game.
you get your edge, Case?
I mean, I'm not gonna just say that. um, but it's honestly, it comes down to just thinking about the game. You sit down, don't just start building right away. Obviously, seeing early builds is cool. Seeing what people think is going to work is also cool. But I think it's super important to just sit there and look at the game with an open mind, not leaving any doors closed. I know it already sounds like mine's closed on like a wall bot, but that's usually just because they never work. um, but I mean that's just the best way to start every season is to just sit down and think, okay, well, what different ways are there to play the game? How do we counter what people currently think is the best way to play the game? And yeah, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to: thinking instead of just building right away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do believe that this game is favoring the not as good teams just because of how easy it is to just de-score the teams, and that you don't really get any downside of, like, yes, you can't score points, but it's not that hard to de-score points, and it's a lot harder to score than de-score.
Yeah, and I don't really know if that makes 1v2s harder or easier in this game because, I mean, even if you're with a terrible push bot, they can still at least descore.
If the push bot
Something.
just follows you around and descores everything you put in.
Yeah, I mean they can at least
And
as
your
long as they
partner's
can
not moving.
as long as they can drive, they can actually make a really big impact in the game. So I mean, I guess
Yeah.
it makes it easier to 1v2, which is nice, but I feel like
That's where
I
winning
do
all times
also
going to come into it.
yeah.
I do also feel that most of the time the teams that have a push bot or like a claw bot that's just a standard kit generally don't have an amazing driver. Just because if they had an amazing driver, they probably would spend a lot of time in VEX and their robot would be different than just a push bot. My personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't see people with bad robots. I mean, those cases, but being great drivers, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're
Not to
interested
say
in
that you
robotics,
couldn't do damage, because you could do damage with a bad robot being a great driver, but why would you want to do that?
I mean, yeah, like Cameron S did go to one tournament with a push bot back in Starstruck and did really well. But at the end of the season, he ended up changing just because he was good at VEX and he decided that a more competitive robot coupled with his driving would just be far better.
I got a question for someone, and just because it's the only question I see right now, I'll ask it. But they're asking, do you think using a lift is not going to win Worlds? Period. Like they're asking for a yes or no answer, and I'm gonna be honest. I don't think any of us can give you one. The game came out yesterday. There hasn't been enough testing and proving. My personal opinion, I think a lift is gonna make it too slow. That's my personal opinion.
I'm gonna
I
agree.
do think we'll probably still. I think we'll see one
Yeah,
lift.
we might see them, but I don't think it's gonna win.
I'm gonna
I would say
agree.
by January, we'll have a very good idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah, there always is that one robot syndrome that we're unsure about.
Yeah.
It gets competitive wise.
We saw double verse 4-bar in Turning Point.
I think
Yeah.
the best overall
mean, yeah.
robot is not gonna have a lift though.
No,
I
not
think,
the best.
especially
overall.
early season, it's going to be meta is going to be having a lift, but we'll see over time. And it takes one team to reveal a really good non-lift bot, and boom, a million people have it. So it just depends.
Exactly. And I think the meta late game is definitely going to be just no lift. It's probably going to be 6 motor tank drive. you'll see side rollers on the bottom so they can de-score very quickly. They'll see a vertical feed through the center that just throws them very fast cycle, very fast drive, probably a 3 capacity. I think it'll be as simple as that. I don't think we'll see very many lifts.
Yeah. And I don't like you said, I don't think that there's really a point to carrying much more than 3, because like having these big old trays that carry like 9, because I mean you don't want your balls in your robot, you want them in the goals. Like there's not really a big point to carrying 6-7 balls at one time. It's not like you're far away from a goal that you can pick up 8 balls before you see a goal that you need to score in. Like there's no point to have a large capacity.
I think if you can somehow get super fast de-scoring coupled with no, it's one of the best options that you can go for by far. Just because if you're able to get that de-scoring like a current lift bot can, it's much more efficient. That's just going to be the challenge you have to work with, getting the de-scoring while scoring with a non-lift bot. That's what I'd say is the main problem or main challenge you have to overcome.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say is the first person to do it and release it is going to be known as the guys who, it's the goofy of the thing.
I mean, yeah.
It might be, but who knows, Honestly, it might just turn out that lifts just decide to be viable for some reason, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I think we really want to get... We don't even have our hands on the game elements yet. So going about how exactly to go about doing a specific design is a little bit getting ahead of...
Cool.
Yep.
All right, everyone got their... If anyone else has anything else... Fuck, I just
let's sit on it for a minute or two, because I think there are still people asking some questions. Like, Adam was asking about last 30-second strategy, thinking about like having like a really high capacity, and I think this was brought up earlier. But the problem with that is that these balls are 6 inches, and it might not sound like much, but that's a third of our of a high school width of a robot. So you got to think about how are you going to fit 6 if you want a 6 capacity? How is it going to change? How you're doing it. I mean, obviously, the only way I think the only way that you have a 6 capacity is with the lift. So that changes the way you're going to play the game.
I definitely think it's possible to have a 6 capacity with a non-lift robot. Just from like my prototyping with 6.5-inch balls, you can not easily, but it is possible to fit 6 balls inside there.
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible, but I don't think it's practical. I think at that point you would want to lift, but I also don't think that's the way to play the game.
Yeah.
What are your opinions about hoarding your partner's balls? Like, is a 3-ball hoard great or not great?
So that's interesting. I think a lot of people initially were thinking of like, oh, we're going to have these separate mechanisms that just pick up 3 of their balls and then just hold them the whole time. It's like, all right, well, you didn't think that now you can't de-score one of the other team's balls because you would be in possession of it to de-score it. You need to be flexible with that. If you're going to hoard it, you need to do something kind of like what 8110's RI1D did, where it kind of has this line of 3, but then when you intake that third one, it's like, okay, if we intake any more here, then we gotta spit one out the back or something like that. Like, you need a way to get rid of them if you need be, because there's always going to be like times where it's not going to work. If you just had an individual mechanism, even if you just had one, or a different mechanism that just held one ball, there's still going to be times where you need to de-score a tube or a goal that's completely filled, all 3 of them with the other team's color. So then you wouldn't be able to de-score all 3. I think if you do have that separate mechanism, you need to be able to, it needs to be linked to your intake that de-scores.
Yeah, I would agree. My one question with how the game is going to be played is how strict are the refs going to be on that? Like back in Turning Point, you could honestly sometimes pick up 3 balls and they just wouldn't care, and you just had to spit it out really quick. Like in NBM, people would pick up more than 4 balls.
169's triple shot.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that.
But then there's other cases where you just pick up 3 balls and you get DQ'd. So it's on a ref by ref basis. You can't judge how refs are going to act because everybody's different.
You just gotta hope that someone does it before you, so you can see how they call it.
I think that this year, though, there's no ambiguity, right? So we're gonna have a much better year in terms of waiting months for Q&A rulings to come out. I don't think there's anything that's so ambiguous that we need to do that. So that's a
think-
definite plus side.
I think there is going to be an issue with refs when it comes to calling pinning, as there always is, and I think pinning is going to be a very big part this year's game, just because of the nature of the game, with the open field and the open goals. And I also think with the possession rule, if I remember correctly, it doesn't just include ones that you control with your robot. It also includes ones that you're just like blocking. Like if they're in the goal and you're blocking the goal, you're technically possessing those balls, if I remember correctly. So
Yeah, that is true. That's also the concern with a wall bot is you could be possessing a bunch of balls by preventing your opponent to getting to those goals
Yeah.
or those balls that are on the field.
Someone said, is Mechanum Drive not going to be viable because X Drive is better? In my opinion, both have their advantages and disadvantages. I think it just comes down to what you're more comfortable with driving, what you think you're better with, what you can make a better autonomous period with. And it's really, I don't think it really matters. I think out of raw power, I think the X Drive is better. But if you're better at driving a Mechanum and you see more advantages to using the Mechanum, then go for it. I don't think there's a big difference there.
Well, theoretically, your driving of a Mechanum and driving of an X Drive should be almost identical.
Yeah.
Like there should be no difference. The only benefit, like even though 7K had a Mechanum drive last year, I think him and I have talked and like him and I has discussed and we've decided that X Drive would have been just a more efficient drive just because you give the boost in speed. It is a little bit wider. That's the only concern. On Mechanum drive, you can make a little bit thinner. So if you need to get somewhere super tight, it's the only benefit I really see.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think that was about it on the questions. You guys about ready to wrap this thing up?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think so.
Any final words from any of you guys?
Yeah, actually. Whatever we're saying here is just, first of all, like the game's been out for like just over 24 hours, and it's also our opinions. So please don't try to like take anything personally if we say that a design you had in mind we don't think is viable. It's just our thoughts. So
Yeah, every team's going to have a different design, especially in the first 24 hours. Like some people are still like thinking flywheels are good, some thinking lifts are good, some people think intakes. So totally up in the air.
And I don't want to say look at us, look at us, look at us, but during Turning Point we had a single catapult. Everybody looked at us with a crooked eye and were like, yeah, that robot's pretty crappy. Like any design can work really well as long as you know how to work with it.
Yeah.
That's my final opinion. It's like you can use a 4-bar lift if you want. If you can drive it better than someone who's not using it, so be it. You beat them. If they're driving it better than you're driving your robot, so be it. They beat you. That's the way that it always goes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Andrew, with a couple months practice, honestly, could even a month practice of just driving could max out skills pretty easily, like driver skills.
Yeah.
So I don't really think it's necessarily this is a good way or bad way because we just don't know what the game's going to be. It's more about consistency in practice than having an amazing, wacky robot design.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, if that's all we got, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I think it was a pretty cool stream. We've been up for 2 hours and 10 minutes. Thank you guys for asking all the questions out throughout the time. Thank you for all the follows. Really appreciate it. We're going to be trying to do a cast here at least every month during the summer. So hopefully we'll get objects by the time we have next cast, maybe some more prototyping, maybe some more bots built to go over. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Shout out to all of our guests today. We really appreciate it, and we really hope you guys enjoyed their valuable discussions that they contributed today. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. And we hope that you have a good day. And finally, leaving off, we are not going to be done here. We're going to be gaming after. We're going to be playing some Valorant. We're going to be joining the call. It's going to be on James Harris's Twitch channel. We're going to rate it now. But he's the mentor of Caution Tape Robotics, IQ, and a middle school team up in Canada. Really cool guy. We're going to be playing some Valorant with them. So stick around. We're going to be rating the channel if you want to watch us play some gameplay. We're going to be answering a lot of questions. If anyone has any questions, come through and just hang out with us. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.